you go.
I lived in Ridley Township for 60 years, and I'm being thrown out of Ridley Township because I can't afford my property taxes.
Here's the solution. Replace the school property tax with a more broad-based and equitable funding stream. And that's exactly what we tried to do with House Bill 76 and Senate Bill 76. Just to give you an idea where this came from, there's a larger paragraph on it later, but I'll just briefly describe it. The bills that were introduced like this in the legislature previously were done by the legislators themselves. Representative Jim Cox of Berks County gave our coalition a unique ability to work with him in the crafting of this legislation. Now, I mentioned the Pennsylvania Coalition of Taxpayer Associations is a nonpartisan group. Our groups span the entire political spectrum from right to left. We worked with Jim Cox over 18 months doing research, talking to lawmakers, talking to ordinary taxpayers to find out what would work and what wouldn't and what they agreed upon. And this bill was an absolute collaboration between Representative Cox and us, the grassroots, ordinary taxpayers. I was privileged to be the one who was the liaison with Representative Cox, and I helped to craft this bill. That's why I'm able to talk to you tonight about what's in it and answer your questions, and we'll take them after I'm finished. When Jim and I started working on this in November 2010, we said, how are we going to treat this in respect to previous versions of the bill? And finally decided we're going to get rid of everything except the essentials. The two essentials were the income tax and the sales tax, the revenue generators. Other than that, we started from scratch. This is what we came up with, the basic provisions. First of all, total elimination of the school property tax, with one exception that we'll get to in a minute. The elimination to be phased in over a 2-year period. Frozen at current levels in year 1 after enactment. Year 2 it goes away completely, and again, with one exception I'll get to. Total elimination of school board taxing ability with a specific exception. Limitation of school funding. We hear the cry all the time that we have to keep the property tax because it's the most stable form of taxation. Maybe so. When you're holding a gun to somebody's head, they're going to do what they have to do to keep their house. But that's not correct, because it's been proven over time that sales and income taxes are far more stable over time than the property tax. Who's familiar with the Upper Marion School District? It's Montgomery County. 5 years ago, Upper Marion had GlaxoSmithKline, pharmaceutical manufacturer in their district, appeal their property tax assessment. They fought it. It was in the courts for 2 years. Ultimately, the courts ruled in GlaxoSmithKline's favor. In the end, it cost the Upper Marion School District $2 million annually in property tax revenue. The upshot to it was, because it was in the courts for 2 years, he had to rebate $4 million to GSK. GlaxoSmithKline is not unique. Businesses all over the state are doing the same thing, appealing their property tax assessments, and homeowners have fallen into this as well. With the 2008 housing downturn, your home is worth a lot less than it was in 2006. And homeowners are doing this well. And every time somebody appeals and wins the appeal, it's less revenue for the school district. And they have to raise the taxes on everyone who's left. So no, it's not the most stable form of school funding. The income tax and the sales tax are, and that's part of what the bill is about, to stabilize that school funding and establish realistic limits on K-12 education spending. We also said the elimination swap must be absolutely tax revenue neutral for 2 reasons. First of all, to be fair, we don't want the replacement taxes to generate any more money than is being generated now in the property tax. Besides that, Governor Corbett, in signing the Americans for Tax Reform pledge, no tax increase pledge, would not sign it if it was not revenue neutral. Moderate expansion of the sales tax base to include more items and services with exemptions for necessities. Pennsylvania has a unique opportunity to do this that doesn't exist in other states. We have the narrowest sales tax base of any state in the country. In 2008, Governor Rendell talked about expanding the sales tax base to other items and services for general fund revenue. In other words, more money to spend at the state level. We're saying if you're going to expand the sales tax base, let's do it for a good purpose. We have the ability, let's get rid of the school property tax by doing it. As an example of the expansion, gum, candy, magazines and haircuts. Any food not on the WIC list. If you're familiar with the WIC list, it stands for Women, Infants, and Children. It's federal guidelines on nutritional foods without added adulterants, without added sugar. Most of the things like fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh meats, produce and dairy, no sales tax on that. If you like your Doritos and your Oreos, sorry, you're going to pay sales tax on them. But just to counter that, people have said, well, you shouldn't apply the sales tax to this, or to that, or whatever. So consider this number. Average school property tax in Pennsylvania is $3,500 a year. We're talking about in the next bullet increasing the sales tax rate to 7%. Take your current school property tax and divide by 0.07. And that will tell you how much you have to spend on newly taxed items and services to equal the amount of school property tax eliminated. If you use a statewide average of $3,500 for a school property tax bill and divide by 0.07, you'll find that you would have to spend $50,000 on newly taxed items and services to equal the amount of school property taxes eliminated. So let's stop singling out individual items and saying, oh, you shouldn't tax this, you shouldn't tax that, because in the end, it doesn't really matter. When you look at the numbers that way, no. Increase the sales tax rate to 7% and increase the state personal income tax to 4.34%. It's currently 3.07. This takes it to 4.34, or a little more than a penny and a quarter on the dollar. Unlike the opponents like to say, it's a 40% tax increase. Well, yeah, it is a 40% increase on the rate, but it's a penny and a quarter on the dollar. I'll pay an extra penny and a quarter on the dollar of income to get rid of my school property taxes. The Act 1 gambling revenue currently allocated to property tax relief currently varies between $608 million, $800 million a year. Not a big number in comparison to the tax we're trying to eliminate, but hey, it's there. We're not going to need it anymore for property tax relief, so let's throw it into the pot. And I mentioned that it would almost completely eliminate the school property tax. When we were looking at the numbers, it said $12.7 billion is going to be a huge nut. How are we going to do it? No way to do it with the sales tax. We've about maxed that out. The income tax would have to go up to over 5%. We looked at, of all places, North Dakota, who had a proposal to eliminate their school property taxes, and what they did was allow the schools to keep enough property tax to pay for their long-term debt service. Statewide, most school districts, about 10% of their budget goes to long-term debt. So that means at the end of year 2, for those districts, 90% of the property tax would go away. They're not allowed to add any more debt based on property taxes. They're not allowed to increase the property tax, only the amount necessary to service that debt. And when the debt is paid off, the remainder of it goes away. We found 18 school districts in the state that are carrying no long-term debt. They'll see the end of their property taxes at year 2. We found one district that was somewhere around 17% of their budget for property taxes, but even then, they're still looking at an 83% decrease in property taxes until that debt is paid off. There were a couple of advantages to doing this. First of all, we didn't have to find the money at the state level and raise state level taxes too high to cover it. But second, previous versions of the bill rolled all that debt into state level financing. And we heard complaints, and rightly so, from people in frugal school districts who said, why should we pay more tax at the state level to finance the overspending of school districts that we had nothing to do with? This way, each school district is responsible for paying off its own debt, and we still eliminate the property tax. And all property tax replacement funding is to be placed in the Education Stabilization Fund, a separate lockbox account. I'm waiting for the groans, okay? Because everybody said, well, look what happened to the Social Security Trust Fund. And the government borrowed from that. There's a difference here. First of all, they can borrow from that and then borrow further to meet their obligations to Social Security. Pennsylvania can't do that. They don't have the ability to do that. The real reason for the ESF is not so much as a lockbox as for transparency. Everything that's generated through the replacement revenue goes into the ESF. All distributions are from the ESF. That way, every penny is accounted for, and we can see if there's any meddling by lawmakers or by the executive branch. So more than anything else, is to keep the process transparent. Okay, now we've got to look at the funding side of the equation. I have heard so much screaming, and this is from opponents who either don't understand the bill or are outright lying, and they're out there saying, oh, all the money's going to go to Harrisburg, and our school district isn't going to get anything, and everything's going to go to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Chapter 13 of the bill. All school districts are funded dollar for dollar for property taxes eliminated. It takes up no more than 5 lines in the bill. Whatever a school district loses in school property tax, it gets back dollar for dollar from the state. There's no redistribution formula. There's no redistribution of wealth. When all school districts are made whole, they get exactly what they're getting now. Annual funding increases are based on the increase in the Pennsylvania average weekly wage or available revenue, whichever is less, allocated to each district equally on a percentage basis. Same thing. No redistribution. Everybody gets the same percentage increase. And notice the increase is based on the average weekly wage, which means the increase in school funding keeps pace with people's ability to pay the tax. Now, I mentioned the school board still had one option to them. We can't leave the school districts twisting in the wind. They're going to have legitimate needs that's going to require more revenue. There's a provision in the bill that allows the school districts to impose either a local earned income tax or local personal income tax, but by voter referendum only without exception. They cannot impose it without the approval of the voters. For a specific project, the referendum to state the purpose of the project, the cost of the project, the tax rate that will be applied, and a sunset date for the tax. So the voters know exactly what they're getting into. They can still use the tax for ongoing expenses if they wish, but that has to be stated and renewed every 4 years. The voters have total control over this. And this counters one of the arguments the opponents like to use against the bill when they scream, it takes away all local control from local school boards. Nonsense. It takes away the ability of any 5 school members to raise property taxes at will, and that's it. There are no mandates of any kind. The school districts aren't told how the money is to be spent. All it does is remove their ability to levy the property tax. And since it's by referendum, the voters finally have a chance to have a say in how the money is spent and how the money is raised. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the essence of local control.
That's right.
Legislation is to be implemented for the replacement of local school district property taxes only, and is not to be integrated in any way with the current basic education subsidy. That will continue in whatever form is determined by the General Assembly. Previous versions of the legislation called for rolling everything into one pot. Didn't work, and that's why we kept the two separate. Both the legislative and the executive branch like to play with that money that was out from the state and favor some school districts over others. We weren't going to get embroiled in that. Let them play in that sandbox and figure it out for themselves, as long as we can get rid of the school property tax. That's the most important part of it. And separate concurrent legislation proposing a constitutional amendment to forever abolish property tax sources as a school funding source. Anything enacted by statute can be repealed the same way. But once you have the constitutional amendment, it's set in stone and it's almost impossible to get rid of. And that's why the constitutional amendment to lock it down. Now, we've heard the excuses that the numbers don't work. Any of you who have heard about the bill already, I'm sure have heard that excuse. The legislation, first of all, is in full fiscal compliance with the analysis conducted by the Pennsylvania Independent Fiscal Office. It was released October 1st, 2013. They did a previous analysis that was released in 2012. The numbers worked. Here's what the analysis said in addition to the numbers. I'll get to the numbers in just a moment. But they also had some comments in the analysis. They said the elimination of school property taxes increases the disposable income of property taxpayers. No kidding. When you're not paying $4,000 a year in school property taxes anymore, and that's in your pocket, it's money that you can spend, and it assumes that 70% of the property tax cut goes to individuals, which is about right, 70% for individuals, 30% for businesses, and it further assumes that homeowners spend 90% of the increase in disposable income. What are you going to do if you have those property taxes back in your pocket every year?
Spend it.
You're going to spend it. And you know what? You might even fix up your home. Which you can't do now because you can't afford it, or if you can't afford it, you won't do it because you're afraid the assessor's going to come out and raise your taxes because you fixed up your home.
That's right.
This gets rid of those problems. But a 90% increase in disposable income. The residential portion of this is about $10 billion a year. You're going to inject $10 billion back into Pennsylvania's economy annually. The federal government borrows money to inject into the economy to try to stimulate it. We can do it right here. $10 billion a year in Pennsylvania's economy. What will that do for us? It also indicates the legislation will cause home values to increase on average by more than 10% statewide. The information that you think that's available up front has the web address on it. Take a look at it. Take a look in the right-hand column, a link to an essay by a real estate taxation expert who explains exactly why every time your property taxes go up, the value of your home goes down. And as a quick example of that, Monroe County is the Poconos. They're the poster child for this problem in Pennsylvania. It's not unusual for the property taxes in Monroe County on a $200,000 home, which is the statewide average sale price of a home, to equal $10,000 a year. 5% of the value of the home. You can't give away your home in Monroe County. Who's going to buy a house for $200,000 with a $10,000 property tax load, knowing it's going to go on forever? Monroe County has 3,000 homes standing vacant right now, walkaways. People who couldn't afford the taxes and just walked away from it with the bank hanging them. That's not generating any property tax either. Working age homeowners realize the tax cut. Yep. The analysis finds that the increase in federal income tax, saying that if you itemize on Schedule A of the federal taxes, you will not be able to deduct property taxes anymore. But they found that the increase in federal income tax through lower itemized deductions, the increase in state income tax and sales tax is more than offset by the reduction in property taxes. Retired homeowners realize a significant reduction in taxes. The analysis finds property tax reduction easily offsets any increase from the higher sales tax. The IFO also said, the elimination, remember the numbers I gave you about Pennsylvania businesses moving here and job creation? The elimination of property taxes would significantly, and this is my favorite one, significantly reduce the property tax share and would clearly, their word, increase the attractiveness of the Commonwealth for business, location, and expansion. I'm tired of politicians telling us how they're going to create jobs. Government doesn't create jobs. They can create the climate for jobs. They don't create jobs. This will help to create jobs. This is the climate we need in Pennsylvania to attract businesses and the jobs they create. Benefits would also accrue to home builders, home developers, and other landowners who convert current land holdings into housing plots, which would increase employment in the construction sector as well. More jobs for Pennsylvania. And regarding business entities, the income flows through to individuals as higher disposable income. For past due entities, the analysis assumes that owners and shareholders spend 90% of the increase, and 70% is spent on taxable goods and services, yielding another secondary effect of $34 million in increased sales taxes. The businesses are going to spend the money, you're going to spend the money, you're going to pay more sales tax, which means more money for education. This is a no-brainer. And yet we still have the opponents of the legislation who will fight it tooth and nail. And regarding business entities, there are those who say we shouldn't eliminate for businesses, we should tax the hell out. Well, I don't agree for a couple of reasons. First of all, the IFO has said we can attract businesses and jobs in Pennsylvania. But second, the Pennsylvania Constitution, the Uniformity Clause, says everybody in the same taxing body must be taxed at the same rate. You can't eliminate for homeowners and not businesses without a constitutional amendment, which is a minimum 3-year process, has been tried 3 times in the past 6 years, and has failed every time. We cannot wait for a constitutional amendment to get this done. And if it means eliminating for property taxes for businesses, fine, so be it. We just need to get it done. I already talked about this, the People's Bill. And what we're most proud of is, in total the PCTA spans the entire political spectrum. And we were able to come together as one on this bill, in agreement on getting this done. The federal government can't do it because of the partisan politics and the polarization. The state government can't do it. We, as ordinary citizens, overcame our political biases and came up with a bill that works for the people, and we're pretty proud of being able to do it when our government can't.
That's right.
Right now, it's not going to pass anymore this session. This session is finished. And we're going to have to reintroduce it in 2015. We came this close this time. This session in the House of Representatives, we had 86 co-sponsors, 58 Republicans, 28 Democrats. In the Senate, 25 co-sponsors, 13 Republicans, and 12 Democrats. You want to talk about bipartisanship? How many bills have almost a 50-50 split on co-sponsorship? And even more amazing is the prime sponsorship in the Senate. 2 Republicans, Senator Mike Poehler and Dave Argall, 2 Democrats, Senator John Yudichak and Senator Judy Schwank, are the 4 primes. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. What does that say about the bill? Most of all, this is a clean bill. This is put together by us, the people. There's hardly a piece of legislation in Harrisburg that isn't influenced somehow, either by politics or by special interests, and has perks in there for politicians or the special interests who demand it. There's even a joke about how the special interest lobbyists will walk into a politician's office, pop their feet up on the desk, and dictate a bill to them. We don't have that. We, as ordinary citizens, don't have that opportunity until now. And there is nothing in this bill that benefits any special interest or any politician, only the taxpayers and the school children of Pennsylvania.
My name is Kerry Trevor. I lived here in my house for 45 years. When I first moved in, all the taxes combined were $500. Now I have to put $600 away each month just for taxes. And is that ridiculous or what? And no, I'm retired. And my wife lives in disability. They say if you don't like it, move out. Who the hell are they to say something?
Common objections, loss of local control, talked about that. We shouldn't tax slowly, books, flags, whatever, talked about that. Land should eliminate for businesses, yep. And the numbers don't work. Okay. This is directly from the Pennsylvania Independent Fiscal Office. What we're worried about is that bottom line that says net fiscal impact. It's taken right from the analysis. Year 1, 2014-15, net fiscal impact, minus $3 million. Meaning the bill comes up $3 million short of raising what is necessary against $12.7 billion. That's 0.0003% of the total necessary. It's rounding error. The bill hits it right on the nose. To come that close is remarkable. Now, where they're saying the bill doesn't work, look out at the far column, 2018-19, when it says there's a $1 billion shortfall. At least that's what the opponents like to say, that it's a $1 billion shortfall. Remember the chart in the black line? That $1 billion is the flattening effect on the black line. It's not a shortfall, it's a savings of projected revenue over time. That is what the property tax would generate if it was allowed in place till 2018. That number is eliminated by the Property Tax Independence Act. It flattens that black line and brings the affordability of schools more in line with people's ability to pay the tax that replaces it. So I don't want to hear about the numbers don't work. It's right there. And then the opponents twist them to say they don't. There it is. Remember the numbers in the chart. I already talked to you about the Optional Property Tax Elimination Act. It was there for one reason, and that was to try to kill this bill because the House GOP leadership doesn't want this bill. Because of special interest influence, and trust me, I am totally nonpartisan on this. When I speak Republican or Democrat, I'll bash either one equally. In this case, thank you. And you're right, they both deserve it. It doesn't matter which party. Look, maybe the ideology is a little bit different between parties, but when you shake them up, you draw one out, you can't tell the difference.
That's right.
That's right, David.
The House GOP leadership opposes the bill. We did because, first of all, the special interest influence, PCTA, the teachers union, is one of them. Second is the Trial Lawyers Association. The trial lawyers hate it because this would impose sales tax on certain legal fees. Criminal cases and domestic cases, family law, would be exempt from the sales tax. But unfortunately, those big money clients who pay the monthly retainers are going to have to pay proper sales tax on it. And that's why the trial lawyers oppose this. The House Majority Leader, Mike Terzai, is an attorney. Last election cycle took over $500,000 in campaign donations from the trial lawyers, Pennsylvania Bar Association, and individual attorneys. Nah, he's not influenced, is he? But besides that, consider this. Right now, the mess that was the pension crisis was made at the state level. But the politicians didn't want to take the responsibility of fund it when everything went sour. So what did they do? They pushed it down to the local level. Let the school boards take the heat for increasing property taxes to pay for the pension while we sit back fat and happy in Harrisburg. Eliminating the school property tax eliminates the school board's ability to raise taxes to fund that pension issue, and it kicks it right back up to the state level where it is. They made the mess, let them fix it. Excuse me, I have a alarm going off. Stop! I'm sorry. This happens. Alright. Kick it back up to the state level where it belongs and make them deal with it because they made the mess in the first place. That's about the Optional Property Tax Elimination Act. Don't tell us it's really, we know better. I hear a lot of times when I've given this talk about, I hope that they'll do something about it. Or good luck, I hope you can do it. Well, if you're talking about they, meaning the people in Harrisburg, they aren't going to do squat about it. They don't want to. It's up to us to make sure that they do. And that means everybody participates. And as far as good luck, I hope that you can do it. I can't do anything. I'm a facilitator. I go out and spread the gospel. But it's up to you, all of us, to work together and pressure the politicians to get this done. You have an election coming up in about 2 weeks. Exercise your right to vote. And if someone doesn't support this bill, they don't get your vote. Seriously. We hope that this has gone beyond just property tax elimination, but has really gone more toward, as people become educated in the bill, and we have some really avid supporters, like the folks who said this meeting tonight, who are working hard for this bill. And as people learn more and more about it and see the corruption that's influencing this bill in Harrisburg, they're learning just how terrible our state government is. Fifth most corrupt in the nation, by the way. I don't know if you've seen that. There was a newspaper article that came out several weeks ago. Fifth most corrupt state government in the nation. And this is more than just beyond property taxes to cleaning up a mess in Harrisburg and emptying the cesspool. And we can do it by letting our voices be heard, because we are the people, we are the government. We can do it with your help. There's the web address. It also should be in the handouts. If you have any questions there, please go to the website, read over the information there. There's a lot of stuff on the website. If you have any questions, send us an email link on the website. I'll answer your questions. I'm the only one to answer them on that website. Please go there, look it over. More than anything else, if you agree with what you heard tonight, tell everyone you know about it. Spread the word. This is one of the best kept secrets in Pennsylvania. A lot of the politicians don't want you to know about this because they don't want you supporting it. Spread the word. We have gone from 6 local taxpayer groups in 2004 to 84 today. From a handful, several hundred people in 2004 to tens of thousands today. And it's all due to grassroots activism. Folks like you getting out and telling people about it, having them learn about it, and getting out of support. That's all I have to say. If you go to the website, please sign up for email updates too. They're free and I won't spam your inbox.